is Ray Davis and Jeff Glover in association with ARMA International at their 57th conference in Chicago. We are pleased to be in the presence of, and awesome to say congratulations to the newest inductee as a fellow of ARMA International, Sandie Bradley. Sandie, welcome.
Well, thank you very much.
What are your thoughts on becoming a fellow of ARMA International?
Well, I'm really flattered and I'm honored. I burst into tears when my friends in Vancouver told me they had formed a committee to nominate me, and now that it's actually happened, I'm amazed and awestruck by the company that I will be joining. So I'm looking forward to it, but a little nervous.
We all have that story, and I'm sure you do too. How did you get involved in records and information management?
I was in my first position after I graduated as a librarian. I was working for a government ministry, and I was in about my third week of employment when my manager came in with a big fat binder and said to me, I've just attended a meeting and we are starting a new program. It's about something called records. You should know what this is about. Here, take it. It's yours, kid. And with that, he left. And I thought, oh, yes, sir, and took the binder and opened it up and started to find out about this mysterious world. And that's how I got in the door.
Tell us about your journey through records and information management. I'm sure it wasn't one step. There's been several along the way.
Yes, it was. It was kind of a circle route, I would think, because after I had that first position that I just told you about, I left that position, and then for 6 years I had nothing to do with records. But after I'd had my first child and I was looking to get back into the workforce, I had a colleague who had set up a consulting firm, and she was looking for some help. So I joined her and started doing projects for her. And that was in 1983. I worked for her until 1987, and then in 87 I set up my own company. So I've been working as a consultant ever since. Along the way, however, I also began teaching because I had also been a teacher of records. And so I've kind of had a combined career as an adjunct professor as well as working as a consultant in the field.
Sandie, I know, as you already talked about, the importance of a previous employer who put you in records management, accidentally perhaps,
yeah.
And a set of some good friends at home who recognize your expertise and experience. There have been other people, I am sure, along the way that have been very influential. Tell us who some of those people might be.
Well, I would have to say the most important person was Patricia Acton, is Patricia Acton. She was, I think, the first Canadian to be a certified records manager, and she was the friend that I alluded to who had set up her consulting business. And so when I went back to work, she had her practice established and she was looking for some help. And so for 3 years I worked for her, and she is still to this day the most influential person I can think about. And of course she didn't just influence me, she had an impact on a lot of Canadian people working in records and information management. Others who have helped me along my path have been some of my colleagues in the local Vancouver chapter. One lady in particular, Muriel Thomas, who's now retired. But she was she'd been our chapter secretary, she had been our chapter president, and after she finished her roles in office, she just became one of those people who mentored us along. And Muriel, of course, also had a wicked wit and a wonderful set of tales to tell, had a little notebook she used to keep expressions in, and I think about her every day. And she's retired now. So those are two people for sure that have been very big influences in my life.
Wow. You know, you've seen records management from the very beginning of your professional life, all the way up until today, and had a sort of unique perspective, I'm sure. What do you feel in today's environment are the greatest challenges for records and information management?
Well, I think it's been a really interesting journey. I began when we were dealing with what one of my colleagues, Jim Colson, calls the janitorial aspects of records, and that was usually there was a room full of paper, usually there was a mess to clean up, and often that was the key priority, just fix this mess and get it out of here. And of course now our tools are technological ones, and the messes we have are often hidden in digital rat's nests somewhere. And so I think it's just getting interesting. I mean, really challenging. And so I think for records managers now, there are two challenges. One of them is that each person has to understand and become familiar with technology. And the other one is, of course, keeping our eyes on what is the next thing coming down the road. You know, who knows what that impact will be, and yet we've got to keep our eye open for it, be willing to embrace it, and then take it apart and see what the issues are for us. Well, those are big challenges.
Well, let's follow up on those big challenges. Just where do you see records and information management evolving with the influence of technology, with some greater presence of some legislation in some areas? Where is this all going?
Well, I think it's going straight to the executive suite. I've helped work on a couple of strategic initiatives that ARMA has been developing. But I know that every day when I'm out working, I'm now speaking to the senior managers in organizations, and those people now see information as an asset to be leveraged and taken advantage of, but also in some cases an institutional risk. And so in their broad role as executives, they're now seeing that that's a very important part of their responsibilities. So I think we've arrived, is what I'm thinking. But that doesn't mean we're done, absolutely not. But I see us now being in the purview of the corporate world for sure.
How do you see ARMA International fitting into that picture from here into the future?
Well, ARMA's been doing a fabulous job of positioning not only the organization, but identifying the issues and positioning the committees and even the publications to address these emerging challenges. And at the same time also emerging as a spokes group for some of the key issues. Information governance, for example, is a topic right now that is probably being discussed in at least half of the sessions here. And ARMA is working on a number of levels, including establishing the criteria for certification, producing a whole variety of educational materials. I have a bias because I am a librarian and a writer, and I think that we are doing a tremendous job with our publications and standards. I hope ARMA will become the world authority on standards for information management, and I think that's a really worthy goal for us to go for.
What words of encouragement do you have for young professionals to consider the RIM profession? I mean, they may be like all of us who they're not in it right now, but maybe they've been exposed to it a little bit. What words of encouragement can we give them to say, hey, join the party, come on in, because records and information management is where you want to be?
Well, I teach, and I always say it is the most wonderful profession if you're curious, if you want to know what's going on in the organization, and if you really have a desire to help influence the path of people that you work with. So I think I'm observing that a lot more people who are discovering the technology issues or are just discovering that they have a desire to get in and help influence some of the issues they see with information management are now finding it an attractive career. I also say it's well paying. It has a tremendous career development path for people, and if you're thinking about any kind of a profession, what more do you want? You want a job where you can feel enriched and you can feel that you're recognized and that you have a path where you can grow. So come on in. And when people say to me, are you retiring yet? I say, hell, why would I? It's just getting interesting. So I think those are really good reasons to become a records manager.
Sandie, we greatly appreciate your time, and once again, thank you for being the newest inductee as a fellow of ARMA International.
Well, I thank you very much for offering to interview me. It's a great privilege.